In the busy spaceport of New Seoul, Captain Tay stood frozen, staring at the official document in his hand. The blue holographic seal of the Galactic Transit Authority pulsed softly at the top, casting a cool glow on his weathered face. "This has to be some kind of joke," he muttered. But it wasn't. The summons was very real. Passenger Du, a wealthy diplomat, was suing Tay for deliberate transit delay resulting in significant damages. In simple terms, Du was angry that Tay had flown too slowly during their last journey. Tay ran his hand through his graying hair and sank into the captain's chair of his ship, the Morning Star. The vessel was small by modern standards but had been his home for 15 years. Its worn control panels and slightly outdated systems were familiar and comforting. "Bad news," asked Officer Song, Tay's loyal navigator, as he entered the bridge. Tay handed over the document. "See for yourself. We're being sued for going too slow." Song's eyes widened as he read. "Can they actually do this?" "Apparently." Tay gestured to the document. "Passenger Du claims I maintained sublight speeds deliberately when faster-than-light travel was available. Says he missed an important meeting because of it." "But you slowed down because of the readings we got," Song protested. "The gravity sensors were showing strange patterns." "Try explaining human intuition to the authority." Tay stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the bustling spaceport. "For centuries, humans were mocked for our slow ships. Now that we've proven ourselves as pilots, they expect us to push every vessel to its limits regardless of safety." The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Humans had entered the galactic community late, their technology considered primitive by most alien standards. But human pilots had quickly earned respect for their adaptability and instincts. Song scrolled through the document. "The penalty. This could bankrupt you. Not just that. They could take my license." Tay's voice was quiet. "Everything I've worked for, gone because I chose to be careful." A soft beep from the communication panel interrupted them. Tay pressed the receive button, and a holographic image appeared of a woman in formal business attire. "Captain Tay? I'm Attorney Jean. The Pilots Guild sent me. I understand you've received a summons from the GTA." Tay nodded. "Just this morning. I've handled similar cases," Jean said. Though her voice was calm, there was a note of concern. "But this is the first time a human has been sued specifically for cautious piloting. It could set a dangerous precedent. Can you help?" Tay asked. "I'll do everything I can. I need you to send me all flight data from the journey in question. Every sensor reading, manual log entry, and especially any notes about why you decided to reduce speed." Song was already at the computer terminal. "I'll compile everything now." Jin's hologram nodded. "Good. We have 3 weeks before the hearing. The case will be tried before a mixed species panel at Central Station." After the call ended, Tay stared out the viewport again. The stars were just becoming visible as New Seoul's sun began to set. "What do you think our chances are?" Song asked. "Honestly? Not good." Tay sighed. "We have no proof there was actual danger. Just my feeling that something wasn't right." Later that evening, as Tay packed for the journey to Central Station, his personal communicator chimed. It was a message from an unfamiliar code. "Captain Tay. You don't know me. My name is Ha. I piloted the cargo ship Bright Future through the same sector 3 days after you. We went full speed. 19 crew members died when something tore through our ship. Something the sensors never detected. I'm still in the hospital, but I heard about your case. Contact me. You saved lives by slowing down." Tay stared at the message, his heart racing. Here was proof. Tragic proof, but proof nonetheless. He immediately forwarded the message to Attorney Jean with a short note, "We might have a chance after all." As Tay prepared for bed, he looked out his small apartment window at the stars. Somewhere out there, powerful people were trying to punish him for being careful. But he knew he had made the right choice.
No schedule was worth risking lives.
Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. 3 days later, Captain Tay and Navigator Song arrived at Central Station, a massive spinning structure that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Transit Authority. The station's curved hallways were filled with beings from dozens of different worlds, most of whom paid little attention to the two humans.
Attorney Jean met them at the docking bay.
She was shorter than Tay expected, but her sharp eyes and confident posture made up for it. "I've been reviewing your case files," she said as she led them through the busy corridors.
"And I've spoken with Pilot Ha. His testimony could be crucial."
They entered a small meeting room with a circular table and windows that looked out into the star-filled darkness of space. "The good news," Jean said, activating a holographic display, "is that I found something interesting in your flight data." The display showed a series of wave patterns that meant nothing to Tay.
"What am I looking at?" he asked.
"These are the gravity sensor readings from your journey," Jean explained.
"Standard analysis shows nothing unusual. But when I ran it through a human-designed pattern recognition program..."
She tapped a command, and the display changed. Now it showed faint but distinct ripples in the previously smooth patterns. "Microfluctuations in the quantum field," Song said, leaning forward.
"The ship's alien design systems didn't flag them."
"Exactly," Jean nodded.
"But Captain Tay noticed something was wrong anyway." "How?"
Tay shrugged. "It felt wrong. The stars looked shimmery.
Like seeing through water. It's hard to explain." Jean smiled.
"That's what makes this case so important.
Human perceptual abilities are different from other species.
We can sometimes see patterns that technology misses."
"Will that be enough to convince the authority?" Song asked. Jin's smile faded. "That's the problem.
We have no definitive proof that what Captain Tay saw was real. We only know he felt something was wrong. And that 3 days later, the bright future was torn apart in the same area," Tay added grimly.
"Yes, but even that isn't conclusive.
The authority will argue it could have been a different phenomenon, or that Captain Ha made a piloting error." Jean sat down across from them.
"We need more evidence."
Later that day, they visited Pilot Ha in the station's medical center. His body was covered in healing burns, and one leg was suspended in a regeneration field.
"Captain Tay," Ha said weakly. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for reaching out," Tay replied. "I'm sorry about your crew."
Ha's eyes darkened with pain.
19 good people. The ship's sensors showed nothing wrong until it was too late.
Then it was like the fabric of space itself was cutting through us. "A quantum filament storm," Song suggested. "They're almost impossible to detect with standard sensors."
Ha nodded.
"The rescue team found strange crystalline formations embedded in the hull fragments.
Like nothing they'd seen before."
Jean, who had been quietly listening, suddenly straightened.
"Were these fragments preserved? Analyzed?"
"Yes," Ha replied. "The investigation team has them."
Jean turned to Tay and Song with renewed energy. "This could be exactly what we need. Physical evidence of what you were avoiding."
As they left the medical center, Jean was already making calls to access the investigation files. Tay felt a flicker of hope for the first time since receiving the summons. That evening, as Tay and Song ate dinner in the station's human-friendly cafeteria, they spotted Diplomat Du entering with a group of well-dressed officials. Du was tall, with perfectly styled hair and an expensive suit that seemed to shimmer slightly in the light.
Du noticed them too.
He said something to his companions, then walked directly to their table. "Captain Tay," he said coldly.
"Enjoying your meal while my reputation suffers?"
Tay set down his fork.
Diplomat Du.
"I'm sorry you missed your meeting, but I made the decision I thought was safest for everyone aboard."
"Safety?" Du scoffed.
"Your job is to transport passengers efficiently. If you're afraid of pushing your ship to proper speeds, perhaps you should find another profession." Song started to speak, but Tay raised a hand to stop him. 19 people died on the ship that traveled the same route at full speed," Tay said quietly.
Would you have preferred to be on that vessel instead? Du's expression faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. Convenient timing, that accident. Almost too convenient. Are you suggesting I somehow arranged for a ship to be destroyed just to justify my actions? Tay asked, disbelief in his voice.
I'm suggesting that humans often use fear and superstition to mask their technical inadequacies, Du replied.
The hearing will show the truth. As Du walked away, Song muttered, now I understand why you didn't like him as a passenger.
He's just one example of what we're up against, Tay said, watching Du rejoin his companions.
To much of the galaxy, human intuition is still considered primitive superstition.
But as Tay looked out the cafeteria window at the vast expanse of space, he knew what he had seen was real. And somehow, he had to make others see it too. The hearing chamber of the Galactic Transit Authority was a large circular room with tall windows showing the stars outside. Captain Tay sat at a small table with Attorney Jean and Navigator Song. Across the room, Diplomat Du sat with his own lawyer, a tall being with blue skin. 5 judges sat at a raised platform. They were from 5 different alien species, none of them human. Their faces were hard to read, but Tay thought they looked skeptical already. This hearing will now begin, announced the center judge, whose skin looked like polished stone. Diplomat Du has filed a complaint against Captain Tay for unnecessary delay during transport, resulting in missed diplomatic opportunities.
Du's lawyer spoke first.
He showed maps of the route and time logs proving that Tay's ship had slowed to sublight speed in a zone where faster travel was allowed. My client missed a critical treaty negotiation because of this needless caution, the lawyer said. The resulting diplomatic complications cost his office substantial influence and resources. When it was Du's turn to speak, he stood straight and tall.
Captain Tay's actions were unprofessional and harmful, Du said firmly.
Human pilots are known for their excessive caution, but this went beyond reasonable safety measures.
There were no alerts from the ship's systems. No warnings from traffic control.
He simply decided, based on nothing but a feeling, to delay everyone on board.
The judges nodded as if they agreed with everything Du said.
Tay felt his stomach tighten with worry. Then it was their turn. Attorney Jean called Tay to speak first.
Captain, why did you reduce speed during the journey? She asked.
I observed a visual distortion in the space ahead, Tay explained. It looked like a shimmer, similar to what I've seen near quantum disturbances. The ship's sensors showed no danger, but human eyes can sometimes detect patterns that machines miss. One of the judges made a sound like a snort. Are we to base safety protocols on human feelings now? He asked. Jean remained calm.
No, Your Honor. We're asking you to consider that different species have different perceptual abilities, all valuable in their own way.
Next, Jean surprised everyone by calling Pilot Ha. He walked slowly to the front, using a cane.
His face still showed healing burns.
3 days after Captain Tay traveled through that sector, my ship attempted the same route at full speed, Ha testified.
We hit something the sensors never detected.
19 crew members died when the hull was breached.
A murmur went through the room.
Even Du looked uncomfortable. The recovery team found this, Ha continued.
Jean activated a hologram showing twisted metal with strange crystal formations embedded in it. Quantum filament damage.
Nearly invisible to standard sensors, but human pilots sometimes report seeing a shimmer when they're present. Jean walked closer to the judges.
We've had the debris analyzed by independent experts. She handed them data tablets. The analysis confirms these are quantum filaments, a rare phenomenon that most detection systems are not calibrated to identify. Du's lawyer stood quickly. This is circumstantial evidence at best.
There's no proof that what damaged Pilot Ha's ship was present when Captain Tay passed through.
Jean nodded. That's fair. Which is why I'd like to present one more piece of evidence. She activated another hologram.
This one showed the route both ships had taken, with a strange cloud-like formation drifting slowly across it.
This is a time-lapse from deep space monitoring satellites. The quantum filament storm moved through this exact area over a period of 4 days.
It was present when Captain Tay passed through, and when Pilot Ha's ship was damaged.
The judges leaned forward, studying the images carefully.
If Captain Tay hadn't reduced speed, Jean continued, his ship might have suffered the same fate as pilot Haas. Instead, by traveling at sublight speed, he was able to navigate safely through the edges of the storm. One of the judges, a being with 6 eyes, spoke up.
If this storm was so dangerous, why wasn't it detected by galactic transit monitoring systems?
Because, Jean explained, our current detection systems were designed by species whose visual perception works differently than humans. They excel at detecting other dangers but have a blind spot when it comes to quantum filaments.
Tay watched the judges carefully. Some looked thoughtful now, less dismissive than before. Du's lawyer tried to argue that the evidence was inconclusive, that one incident didn't justify changing protocols. But Tay could see that Ha's testimony and the physical evidence had made an impact. When all sides had finished, the head judge announced, "We will consider all testimony and evidence presented.
This hearing will resume tomorrow for our decision." As they left the chamber, Tay noticed Du watching him with a strange expression, not anger now, but something that looked almost like doubt.
"Do you think we convinced them?" Song asked quietly. "I don't know," Tay replied.
"But at least now they know there was a real danger.
Not just a human superstition."
As they walked through the station corridors, Tay felt lighter somehow. Whatever the judges decided, he knew he had made the right choice that day. And now, others knew it too. The next morning, Captain Tay, Navigator Song, and Attorney Jean returned to the hearing chamber. The 5 judges looked serious as they took their places. Diplomat Du and his lawyer sat confidently at their table, clearly expecting a favorable ruling. "Before we announce our decision," the head judge began, "we would like to ask a few more questions about these quantum filaments." One of the other judges, a being with feathery skin, leaned forward. "If these phenomena are as dangerous as you claim, Captain Tay, how is it possible that our advanced sensor systems cannot reliably detect them?"
Tay stood to answer. Different species perceive the universe in different ways.
The sensors we use were designed based on the perceptual abilities of the dominant spacefaring races.
Humans see certain visual patterns that.
He stopped mid-sentence. Something had caught his eye, a subtle distortion in the air near one of the large windows. It was faint, like heat rising from a hot road.
"Captain," the judge prompted. "Please continue." Tay wasn't listening.
He was watching the distortion, which seemed to be growing.
"Captain Tay, the court is waiting," Attorney Jean whispered urgently.
"There's one here," Tay said quietly.
"A quantum filament. In this room."
Jean looked alarmed.
"Are you certain?" Before Tay could answer, the station's lights flickered.
A moment later, a low alarm began to sound. The head judge tapped a communication panel.
"Control room, what is happening?"
A voice responded through the speakers. "We're detecting some kind of spatial anomaly inside the station.
Scanners can't pinpoint it precisely. Containment procedures are initiating."
Tay watched the distortion growing more visible. It was moving slowly across the chamber, like an invisible knife cutting through the air. "It's a quantum filament storm," he announced loudly.
"And it's forming inside this room."
The judges looked skeptical, but then the lights failed completely. Emergency lighting bathed the room in a dim red glow. "Everyone needs to move away from that section now," Tay ordered, pointing to where he could see the rippling air.
"That thing will cut through metal like paper." No one moved at first.
Then, with a sound like tearing cloth, a metal support beam near the window split cleanly in half. The severed piece crashed to the floor, narrowly missing one of the court officials.
Panic erupted in the chamber.
People rushed toward the exits, but Tay noticed something dangerous. The quantum filament was drifting toward the main door.
"Not that way," he shouted. "It's moving toward the exit. Go to the side door." Most people changed direction, but Diplomat Du, trying to push ahead of others, hadn't heard.
He was heading straight for the danger.
"Du!"
Tay called.
"Stop. Look at the air in front of you." Du either didn't hear or didn't believe him.
He continued forward until he was just steps away from the invisible filament. Without hesitation, Tay rushed across the room. He grabbed Du by the shoulders and pulled him backward just as the filaments sliced through the space where Du had been standing. A decorative wall panel split in two, the edges smoking where they had been cut. Du's eyes widened in shock as he realized how close he had come to being cut in half. You saved me," he stammered. "Let's get everyone to safety first," Tay replied. "Follow me." Using his ability to see the subtle distortions, Tay guided the group through the chamber, avoiding the filaments that continued to form. The station's emergency systems seemed confused, alarms blaring but no useful guidance coming from the speakers. "How do you know where they are?" asked one of the judges as Tay directed them around an invisible danger. "I can see them," Tay explained. "Not clearly, but enough to know where they are. It's like a shimmer in the air." They reached the side door, but it wouldn't open, the emergency lockdown had sealed it. "The manual override," Song suggested, pointing to a panel next to the door. Tay nodded. "Cover me." He approached the panel carefully, watching for any sign of filaments nearby. As he worked the manual controls, he could feel the others watching him with a mixture of fear and hope. Finally, the door slid open. "Single file," Tay ordered. "Stay close to the left wall." One by one, they filed through the doorway into the relative safety of the corridor beyond. Tay went last, making sure everyone else was safe before following. In the corridor, emergency teams were arriving, looking confused about how to handle the invisible threat. "We need to evacuate this entire section," Tay told the security chief. "These filaments can cut through anything. And your sensors won't detect them properly." The security chief looked doubtful until one of the judges spoke up. "Listen to him," the judge said firmly. "He just saved all our lives in there. He can see these things when our technology cannot." As evacuation orders spread throughout the station, Tay found himself standing next to Diplomat Du, who was staring at him with an expression of disbelief and gratitude. "You could have let me die," Du said quietly. "After how I treated you." Tay shook his head. "That's not how this works. Not for me, anyway." As alarms continued to sound and people rushed through the corridors, Tay realized that his simple act of caution, the very thing he'd been sued for, had just been proven right in the most dramatic way possible. The emergency lasted 6 hours. Throughout that time, Captain Tay worked with the station's security teams, helping them track the invisible filaments that their technology couldn't detect. When it was finally over, half the station had been evacuated, but remarkably, no one had died. Several sections had been damaged where filaments had cut through walls, but the station's automatic sealing systems had prevented any major decompression. 2 days later, the hearing reconvened in a different chamber. The damaged section of the station was still being repaired. The 5 judges looked different now, more thoughtful, less dismissive. Diplomat Du sat alone at his table. His lawyer was nowhere to be seen. "This hearing will now continue," announced the head judge. "In light of recent events, we have reached our decision regarding the case against Captain Tay." The room was completely silent. Tay felt Navigator Song grip his arm tightly. "The case is dismissed," the judge declared. A wave of relief washed over Tay. But the judge wasn't finished. "Furthermore, we wish to acknowledge that Captain Tay's actions, both during the original journey and during the recent emergency, demonstrate the value of human perceptual abilities in certain critical situations." Diplomat Du stood up. "If I may speak, honored judges." The head judge nodded, and Du turned to face Tay. "I wish to formally withdraw my complaint," he said. "Captain Tay's caution, which I mistakenly viewed as incompetence, saved my life twice, once during our journey, though I didn't know it then, and again during the emergency here. I was wrong." The admission clearly wasn't easy for him, but his voice remained steady. "Thank you, Diplomat Du," the head judge said. "Your statement is noted." Then the judge with feathery skin spoke. "The events of the past days have revealed a significant gap in our safety protocols. While our technology is advanced in many ways, it appears that human sensory capabilities offer unique advantages in detecting certain spatial phenomena." Another judge continued, "Therefore, we are implementing new guidelines. All passenger vessels traveling through regions with recorded quantum filament activity will now be required to have a human observer on the bridge, regardless of automation level.
Tay could hardly believe what he was hearing.
Throughout human history and space, they had been playing catch-up with more advanced species.
Now, for the first time, human abilities were being recognized as uniquely valuable. After the hearing, Attorney Jean was beaming. This is more than just winning your case, Tay. This is a landmark decision that acknowledges the unique contribution humans can make to space travel safety.
As they walked through the station corridor, they were surprised to see Diplomat Du waiting for them.
Captain Tay, Du said, stepping forward. I wanted to speak with you privately.
Tay nodded to Jean and Song, who tactfully moved ahead to give them privacy.
I owe you an apology, Du said. I valued efficiency over safety. I thought human caution was just primitive fear.
It's easy to confuse caution with fear, Tay replied.
But sometimes slower is actually safer. Du smiled slightly. Yes, I've learned that lesson quite dramatically.
He hesitated, then added, I've been assigned to another diplomatic mission next month. I was hoping, that is, I would like to book passage on your ship for the journey.
Tay raised his eyebrows in surprise. Even though I might fly too slowly? Because you might fly too slowly, Du corrected.
I find I now prefer a captain who trusts his instincts when it comes to safety. They shook hands, an understanding reached that went beyond words. Later, as Tay and Song prepared to return to their ship, they received a message from the Pilots Guild. The Guild was establishing a new training program to help pilots of all species learn to identify the subtle signs of quantum filaments. They wanted Tay to be the lead instructor.
What do you think? Song asked. Will you take it?
Tay looked out at the stars through the station's viewport.
For years, humans have been learning from other species. Maybe it's time we shared what we know too. On their last day at the station, Tay visited Pilot Ha in the medical center. He was recovering well, though the loss of his crew still weighed heavily on him. I heard about the ruling, Ha said. You've changed things, Tay. Because of you, what happened to my ship won't happen to others.
Because of us both, Tay corrected. Your testimony helped them understand. As Tay prepared to leave, Ha called after him.
They're giving me a new ship once I'm healed. First thing I'm going to do is install a big sign on the bridge that says sometimes slower is safer. Tay smiled. I might do the same.
Walking back to the Morning Star, Tay felt a deep sense of pride. The ship that had once seemed outdated now represented something important, a reminder that even in an age of advanced technology, there was still value in human perception and intuition. As he settled into the captain's chair and began the pre-flight checklist, Tay knew that he would still slow down when his instincts told him to. Only now, instead of being sued for it, he would be following official protocol. Sometimes, being human was advantage enough.